prepare for this Toronto game. And who knows, and as I've said, and far be it from me to be Mr. Positivity about the Orioles, but they can win the World Series. So this just in, even though it's been a little sleepy around here, I have a flight to Arlington this weekend. But meanwhile, the Ravens hit a speed bump on Sunday, and not to be unexpected, and I find it fascinating that the internet wants to fire Harbaugh and Trestman. They lost by a point at home to a team that's a pretty good football team. Bo Smolka and I have been at it out in Owings Mills. He sort of is one of the running mates of Luke Jones, who covers the team for us. You can follow him out on Twitter at @BSmolka, long-time public relations man at Bucknell, and here covering the Ravens for Comcast Sportsnet. We welcome Bo back onto the program. Always a pleasure to have a guy that's got the deep sports knowledge. Bo, I watch a lot of sports. I'm not upset about this loss. I mean, could they have won? Sure. Might they have won? Yeah, but I can't come home and be upset about 3-1 and a 1-point loss. I didn't like the way the defense folded at the end. I haven't liked the way the offense is, but by and large, I'm okay with where they are right now.
Hi, Nestor. Well, yeah, 3-1 through 4 games, I think a lot of people will take. But this was the game that I think a lot of people looked at and said, this is where we'll really get a sense of this team. Going out and winning at Jacksonville, winning at Cleveland, a lot of people didn't view as tests for this team. They both turned out to be, they had issues with both those games, but they managed to win the games. Beating the Bills at home in the opener, I think a lot of people expected that to happen. So they were 3-0 facing questions, and the issue was when you face this team that beat them last year, that clearly came in with some very potent offensive weapons and a real solid pass rush and a lot of strengths. How would this 3-0 Ravens team handle their real first, what a lot of people thought was true test? And it's a loss. I mean, as I say, when they were winning those games, they count, and the loss counts as a loss. They played well at times. They played very not well at other times. And overall, as I said earlier during the game, or right when the game ended, I tweeted a few things out. And I said, in the end, the short answer is the Raiders made enough plays, and they made more plays, and they flat out played better overall than the Ravens did. And the Raiders deserve to win.
He is Bo Smolka. You can follow him out on Twitter at @BSmolka. And so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. I don't think it's any secret the offensive line is lacking right now, right? And certainly it's lacking its starters, who aren't even veteran guys to begin with. These were sort of the veteran backups in Ryan Jensen, who I like immensely, and obviously James Hurst, who's given it his best. And he played a couple of good games in the beginning when he had to fill in, and since then, other than Flacco getting tripped up and whatnot, this was not the best week to be having this situation against Khalil Mack coming out of that. I mean, you knew he was only going to be silenced for so long. I don't want to say it was a coming out party, but certainly if the Ravens are going to win and make the playoffs, and I don't think they're a Super Bowl team, but I think they can be, in that 9, 10, 11 win conversation, especially, spotted the first 3 games, and there's only so much you can prove in Jacksonville or Cleveland. But if they can't protect Flacco, this isn't going to go well, Bo. I mean, and on top of that, it's hard to run the ball when the offensive line's not making that work either. In the end, the stats look all nice and pretty. You look down, Flacco threw for 300. They ran 130. Yeah, they're a little out of balance at 52-26 run-pass ratio. And more than that, this dink-dunk thing, that's not what this is designed to do. And that's all the offensive line is going to allow for the time being.
Well, I think there's a couple issues you touch on. First of all, the offensive line does have to be better. Now, Sunday, as you said, Stanley was out. Lewis it was interesting. He was cleared by the concussion protocol, and he was in uniform, and he was active. But there must have been something more to it, because at no point did he come into the game, despite the fact that the line was clearly struggling. At one point, he got some looks at left tackle briefly early in camp, and I don't know if that was something they might have looked at. John Urschel was another one who was active, but they went with Hurst and they went with Jensen throughout the game on that left side of the line on Sunday, and they did. They had trouble. Now, early in the game, I was watching closely, and there were times when Mack was lined up over there, and he would Hurst had him, and Jensen would double him, and they did. And early in the game, they did a better job on him, but that was only going to hold up for so long. It's a really good pass rush, and it wasn't just Mack, and they came from both sides. Rick Wagner got beat a few times, and the holding penalties killed them. I think they had 5 or 6 holding penalties in the game. So what could have been, 2nd and 4 suddenly became 1st and 20, and now you're starting from a long down and distance problem, and they struggled when they got those holding penalties. By and large, those drives stalled, and the holding penalties were partially, attributed to the rush. Clearly, those guys, they were just having a hard time handling them. I would say clearly they want Stanley and Lewis back, and Hurst was struggled. Jensen, they like his physical ability, but the line needs to be better. And I don't know how good it would have been if Stanley had played. I mean, that line still was what I think would have been tough. Those are good pass rushers coming out of Oakland.
Well, I think
the
we
other
looked
thing
at
you mentioned
yeah.
that I think is really significant is this idea with Flacco in the offense. Now, part of it is, again, if he drops back and he has no time, he doesn't have any time to throw deep. But in listening to him speak on Sunday after the game, you could sense frustration in his voice that this team isn't taking more deep shots downfield. He talked about how many passes they're completing and throwing to try to get 250 passing yards. And you can tell in his voice he wants to be taking more deep shots. Now, why is that not happening? Is it Trestman making the calls? One of the issues is if the defense doesn't respect the run game, they have no problem playing their safeties deep. Now that deep ball might not even be there if you want to take it. If they got 2 safeties playing deep, it doesn't make sense to throw into coverage where there's easily going to be a safety back there deep. So you have to be able to run the ball to be able to throw deep. But I think there's no question Flacco is getting frustrated with the distribution of the passing game and not taking. He said it once before. He got on Trestman's, talked to Trestman on the sideline saying, we need to take more deep shots. I think it was at the Cleveland game. And in hearing him after the game on Sunday, I think he has the same feeling. They need to take more deep shots. They have Perriman, they have Wallace, they got these people the idea to extend the field, throw deep, and they're not doing it. It may be because they're not able to run, so the safeties are playing deep. It may be because Trestman chooses to throw the short 6, 7, 8-yard passes. But again, these little passes over the middle, Perriman's dropped 3 or 4 of them. That doesn't seem to be his skill set. So I think there's something to that. They have to decide what they're going to do, but I think the way they're distributing the ball in the passing game is not agreeable to Flacco right now.
I think the big picture also on this is, you want to run deep routes, you better have good pass protection, and you've got a guy who is your franchise, right? Like, let him hobble off, and so hobbles off our season, right? I mean, we're all pretty aware of that, right? So knowing that, a part of this has to be, well, we can't keep him clean to the count of 4. How are we going to keep him clean to the count of 6 or 7? And when the pocket breaks down, then he's running around, and that is the last thing we want. Now, all that being said, he's not clean as it is, and certainly given the way the line is right now, it's a lot harder to pull those cards out of the bottom of the deck and say, we're going to extend the play and have Joe throw the ball 50 yards when by the time a guy gets to 25 or 30, Joe's running for his life and the pocket's broken down. And we did see him throw across his body at one point very successfully, and a throw that not a lot of guys can make in this league. But I don't think ideally that's what Trestman wants, is sort of this draw it up in the sand, Ben Roethlisberger, let's extend the play that way. But taking the ball deep does take protection for him, and it's something that they just don't have right now, not with any sort of consistency at all.
It's true. No, they clearly need better protection for him, no doubt about it. As you said, if they can't get them to 4 seconds, they're not getting them to 6. They're not getting them time to get Perriman 40 yards downfield. And that's a problem. And as I said, it hasn't. In the game Sunday, I know a lot of people are on Hurst and Jensen for problems on that left side. But the problems, as I said, Rick Wagner got beat a couple times. Pressure came up the middle on Zuda a couple times. It was not just the left side. So this line does need work, and they do need to create a pocket and give Flacco time. No question, they don't want him scrambling around, breaking tackles, fighting off hits, as Roethlisberger will. That's the last thing they want. They want him to get set, get his feet under it, and throw that ball 50 yards downfield. If that's what he does as well as anyone in the league. As I said after the one throw he made, I believe it was in the Cleveland game, but I don't think there's anyone in the league that looks more effortless putting a ball 60 yards in the air than Flacco. It looks like it is no effort for him to just step up and zing that thing 60 yards in the air. He's got such an arm. But, as you said, if he doesn't have time to get those receivers downfield, if they can only go 30 yards, there's no point in throwing it 60. So it does begin with protection up front. No question about it, and that has to get better.
He is Bo Smolka. You can follow his journey at B-Smolka. That's Smolka. He is the Ravens correspondent for Comcast Sportsnet and does a great job of covering the team. Always love having him on the program and talking about sort of the insights on all this. Bo, by and large, with the Ravens at 3-1 right now, maybe you could have scribbled it out back in April, the night the schedule came out. Overachieving, underachieving, or are you, as a pundit and a critic, happy with this? I mean, I got to say, I didn't know they had 9 guys that were going to catch balls on week 4 of the season. And I don't know that we want Kyle Juszczyk catching 6 balls for less than 60 yards and, having Flacco complete 32 passes for less than 300 yards to, 9.3 average. But that being said, they have far more capable receivers and guys who you have to respect and have to cover, and you throw Steve Smith and Pitt in there, who had to be question marks all season. There's no way you could sensibly sit around and count those guys as is or anything more than might be's, and here we are 4 weeks in, and they have been beyond good contributors. Mike Wallace has been a nice signing. Perriman's got to catch the ball, right? But Steve Smith, I am blown away, dude. You're an old guy. I'm an old guy. We've seen a lot of things. I've never seen this, man. A 37-year-old guy coming back from that kind of an injury and running away from men half his age after he stiffs-armed them and beats them down to the turf. Dude, this is a special, special dude. And if you're out there like trying to exclamation point the Hall of Fame, what he did on Sunday at that age, show me anybody in the history of the league with that birthday, on that many years and weeks into their life, playing football at that level in the National Football League after that injury. Dude, I take my cap off. I mean, that's unbelievable, but that has led to, I don't want to say some sort of revitalization. I mean, Flacco hasn't had the greatest complement of receivers here. We've never had a great complement of wide receivers in Baltimore, but this will do. They can win with this, right?
They can. The play Smith made was remarkable. Like you said, I mean, he was 37 years old off an Achilles injury. Not only, it was not an easy catch. He had to extend his arms to make the catch. Then he shakes the guy, and then he flat out outruns people in the end zone at 37 years old. I mean, it was a great play.
If that's not the play of the week, what is? I mean, show me anything else that happened in the NFL, and I hadn't even seen it all, but, what could be better than that play, really?
It was a great play. And, look, I'm one of those people who never thought I thought Pitto would never play again.
You and me both.
So, to his credit, and I'm glad he's a nice guy, I'm very happy he's come back. And so as you started to say, the team clearly has more offensive weapons than they had last year. It's a better offense than it was last year. They have to sort out the running game. Terrence West did a nice job Sunday toward that end. They have to sort that out and get it consistent. But by far, they have more offensive weapons than they had last year. Having said that, they can't afford to make the mistakes that they made. I mean, let's face it. Late in that game, Chris Moore drops a pass. It's probably 7 or 8 yards in the last minute of that game. And if he makes that catch, I think they would have brought Tucker out to try a 60-yard field goal to win the game. It would have been 4th and about 4 if they get no other yardage. And, again, now if he doesn't drop it, if it's 2nd and 4, I think it was the first down play, maybe they call a different play. Maybe they get a first down, and now they get 7 yards closer. But I still think that at 67 yards or 68 yards, they weren't going to have Tucker try it. But if Moore catches that ball, they try it, in my opinion. We'll never know. But, again, that was an eminently catchable ball. And that's not to pick on Chris Moore, who I think has a lot of promise, but it just was another one of those plays that they didn't make in the game on Sunday. And there were just enough of them that when you play a good team, you're going to lose. And that's what happened.
Well, Perriman hasn't played much, so he had the label of not getting on the field. Now that he's played, he's dropping a pass a game, right? I mean, and they're adding up, and we're seeing it. And one thing we say about Harbaugh, both the Harbaughs, probably their old man too, although I didn't, study his coaching style. They don't go for fumbling. They don't go for dropping. They at some point you will find the pine, as I guess Justin Forsett found that on Sunday. If you're not producing, you're not going to play.
Yeah, Perriman, I think all 3 or 4 of his drops he's had have been on these little crossing routes, 7, 8 yards over the middle. I don't know if it's a matter of not having strong hands and grabbing that. I don't know if he's, the old hearing footsteps when he comes across the middle. I don't know if he has the T-Rex arms and he's not extending, but he's just dropping those balls over the middle. And remember, his first catch he ever made was that spectacular one down the sideline. The ability is there to make the catches. I think they want to run him deep, but you're right. If he continues to drop balls over the middle, the ball will not be coming his way much more. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And again, I don't think that's the best use of his abilities, but they run their routes, and he's the play that they had at the time. But he's got to produce. Kamar Aiken's a guy who's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle this year, but I think he's a more effective receiver on those routes. He tends to be. He has, at least last year, in what little we've seen him this year, he's strong on those kind of plays. But he's been kind of a lost man with the addition of these other receivers. But they've got Perriman, Moore, both had a couple drops on Sunday, and you can't do it. You can't do it very often and still keep playing.
From the running game, and I know I love your background from Bucknell and Mike Butts and all those days with Bucknell and Towson. I know you're a small school guy. The Terrence West story is rich and wonderful if he becomes Ray Rice here for the next 5 years and, rushes for 1,000 yards and gets the ball 25 times a game. But at some point, the offensive line, for some of the leakiness of pass protection, until they get it solidified and get starters back and they're playing the same 5 guys every week and they're playing, as John Harbaugh would say, above the bar, the running game's really going to be choppy. I mean, it can't not be. And I know Forsett found the pine, and Buck Allen got a couple of carries. They're really waiting on this kid Dixon, who really flashed some special things back in July and August. But for now, it's Terrence West, and certainly not a bad effort on Sunday. Certainly not his fault.
No, he looked good. And it was funny because earlier in the week, he was asked directly, is it easy? Is it okay when you to share the job with Forsett? Forsett at one point had said, "No, I don't." He joked, "What is a running back by committee? What exactly is that?" And he's kind of joking, but the point was clear. None of them want to be a running back committee. They all want to be the guy with the ball, which is why they're in the NFL. Frankly, they've all been good enough to want the ball all the time. And Wes said earlier last week before the Raiders game that he admitted it was difficult to get in any kind of rhythm when you're playing 4 snaps a quarter, then you're sitting for 6 minutes, then you play 3 snaps, then you sit, and then you play 5 snaps. He said he gets better as the game goes on. He gets into a flow, and on Sunday he did that. He didn't start out well. I think his first 3 carries, he totaled 3 yards. Then he popped a 20-yarder in the second quarter, and then the third quarter he had 2 or 3 big runs on a scoring drive. And whether it was him hitting holes, the offensive line making the holes for him, suddenly he did look like he got into a rhythm, and he had 21 carries in the game for 113 yards, his best ever. He had one other 100-yard game. In fact, it was his very first game of his career when he was with the Browns. He ran for 100 yards. So he looked very strong. I don't know if they will say, Harbaugh said all summer, we'll go. We have all these running backs. We'll go with the hot hand. They did that on Sunday. Will West be the guy that gets 20, 25 of the team's 29 carries in future games? I don't know, because they've been waiting on Dixon. They like Dixon. He might be back from his knee injury as soon as this week. And then I don't know what that bodes for Forsett. I don't know what it means for Buck Allen. Now you've suddenly got 4 backs looking for work, and I don't know how it will be distributed. West, to his great credit, again, I like the small school guys. I'm glad he came out of Towson and made a name for himself. And frankly, he did a great job because he had, let's face it, he had 2 very miserable, underwhelming seasons in Cleveland and then going to Tennessee, and his name was not good around the league after those 2 years. People thought he had underperformed. There were questions about his work ethic. There was all of this. He comes to camp this summer, frankly, as probably the number 4, maybe number 5 back in the depth chart. Remember, you had Forsett, you had Allen, you had Lorenzo Taliaferro, who was, going to be in the mix as well. You had Dixon, who had just been drafted. Trent Richardson was kind of a flyer, but there was plenty of competition. There was no guarantee West was even going to make this team. And I thought he played all summer with a sense of urgency. I thought he outplayed every other running back, quite frankly. I thought he had one of the best camps of anyone on the 90-man roster, and he earned his spot on the team. So everything he's gotten to this point this year, he has earned.
Well, and a 100-yard day, at home, and the first thing he says at his locker is, hey, I rooted for the Ravens. I know this is important. There wasn't anybody in there real pleased about losing by a point and blowing a 6-point lead with 3 minutes left to go and then getting the ball back. And as Flacco said, look, getting a touchdown's hard, but we ought to be able to get a crack at a field goal. And, boy, they're going to have to chew on that. Jimmy Schwartz used to call it the RA, the red ass. They'll have that for the next 6 days. I mean, they got their feelings hurt on Sunday, and they're going to look back on this one as eminently winnable. They're as upset as anyone, and here comes this 95 rivalry thing, right? I mean, we don't see these guys very often. They've been a bit of a disappointment, the Redskins. This is a big week for the Ravens. This is an important win. I thought the Raiders thing could go either way. They got to beat the Redskins this week.
Oh, I think so. I think losing back-to-back games at home would put the Ravens back on their heels quite a bit. So yeah, I think it's suddenly a very important game for them. And I, as you said, I think that locker room was. They knew they hadn't played great, but I think all along they thought they could win the game. Flacco said it himself. He goes, well, there was no doubt in his mind when they got that ball back after the last Raiders touchdown. There were 2 minutes left. The first time at the end of the first half, they ran the 2-minute offense very effectively and got down the field. Flacco had no doubt that they were going to get down the field and get in field goal range. He had no doubt. And they got to midfield, and then they had the incompletion when Moore dropped the ball in his fingertips. And then they just misfired. The game's over. But, with Tucker, I think they thought all along, we'll get the field goal range. That won't be a problem.
Bo, did you feel that? I did. I felt like, I've read this book. They're going to come down and get a kick. And, Tucker's either going to hit or miss a 48-yarder or 51, whatever it is. Probably hit it, I thought they were going to win. I thought this is the way the Raiders lose a game. They come 3,000 miles. They kick the Ravens snot for 45 minutes. They fold up for 8 minutes. They come back. Looks like they're going to win. And Tucker hits, and the Ravens are 4-0, and the Raiders are back to 2. I thought that was the script. Boy, I was a little stunned at the end. I think a lot of those guys, the veteran guys, were stunned because they really thought they were going to win.
No, and they could have won, and you can't say they should have won because I thought they got outplayed. But again, the bottom line is they had the ball with a minute and a half left, driving, first down in midfield with a minute left, and all they need to do is probably get 10 yards, maybe less. As I said, if Moore gets 7 yards on that catch and they're 60 yards out, I think they would let Tucker try it to win the game. But 50-yard line, 1 minute left after everything that had gone wrong, I think they thought they had the game won. But then Moore made the incompletion. Then he throws incomplete to Perriman, misfires to Pitt on a ball that was not well thrown. And now you got 4th and 10. I don't think they seriously gave any thought to Tucker trying a 68-yarder at that point. And then they try a 4th down pass. It was tough into Aiken in traffic, and they lose. Again, it's not a game they deserve to win. Frankly, they didn't. They made too many mistakes throughout the game. And let's not forget the fact that they really made a lot of errors on special teams in that game today. It was a second straight bad game for their special teams unit. Gave up a huge punt return. And just little things.
Well, Hester kicked the ball around at one point. I mean, geez, he lucky he fell on it.
He dropped that's two weeks in a row he's dropped fumbles. And, I mean, there is nothing that Harbaugh has less patience with than ball security and fumbling the ball. I don't know. That's Hester's job. He doesn't play on offense. He doesn't play on defense. His one role on this team, and they talked about when they signed him, ball security is the thing they loved about him. Well, that's true. A fumbled punt return 2 weeks ago in Jacksonville, a fumbled kickoff return against the Raiders. And if he didn't fall on it, Raiders have the ball inside the 30-yard line to start the second half, I think it was. I think it was opening kickoff in the second half. And now they're in real trouble. So that's a concern. But I thought for second week in a row, the special teams had problems. So that was another phase of the game that we haven't really talked about, but was disappointing. So it all comes back to the point that they didn't deserve to win. They could have won. They thought they were going to win. I thought they were going to win when they got the ball to midfield with a minute left. It just looked like Flacco could get 10, 12 more yards, which is all they would have needed with Tucker. but in the end they didn't, and they lose, and they deserve to lose for what had transpired over all 60 minutes. It does make the Redskins game bigger. They're home again. It's a game they feel they should win. They should be, other than maybe a thing or two, they should be fairly healthy. I don't think there were any, I don't know what the Stanley issue was going to be. There weren't, I don't think, any major injuries coming out of the game. Weddle, went through the concussion protocol and was cleared.
Kamar Aiken at the end got crunched up pretty good.
Aiken got hit at the end, yeah. So, but they're going to come. The Redskins are going to come in, and it's a game. The Ravens will come in, hungry after this loss, and maybe humbled a little bit. But it's a game. I think it's an important game. They need to win this one.
Well, I tell you what, 2 drives at the end, the Smith play, which wasn't really a drive, it was a play, the Terrence West thing after they kicked the ball around, to allow the Raiders to go 6 plays, 66 yards in 1 minute and 24 seconds. We're going to talk about Flacco, we're going to urinate on the offense and the Trestman and this and that. In the end, the defense kind of folded. We're blaming it on the offense for not scoring at the end. The defense allowed a drive that they just can't happen at home with 3 minutes left to go against anybody, right?
No, Carr carved them up that last drive. I mean, he took them down the field in no time. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't handle Crabtree. I mean, Sharice Wright, he got too open too often. He found the tight end down the middle for a big catch, and and to his credit, Carr made the last touchdown throw to Crabtree was a great throw. Now he faked right out of his shoes on an early move, and at that point, Kendrick Lewis was in the game. Webb had Kendrick Lewis was in the game on that last touchdown to Crabtree. I believe it was Webb that had been out. Kendrick Lewis came over late to help out over the top after Wright got beat. I don't know if Webb would have got there either. The bottom line is it was a great throw from Carr and a really, really good catch from Crabtree. We talked all week leading into this game. Cooper, Crabtree, offensive weapons this team has. Carr's a good quarterback. He can get her out of trouble. He can avoid pressure and give himself time, find receivers. And they made plays all day. He got Crabtree, made a couple of great high-point catches, just went up and caught the ball. It's one thing, you make a catch. He went up and caught these passes high. Right for the, 2 or 3 weeks in a row now, he's had trouble. Let's face it, when you have Jimmy Smith on one side, people are going to look at the other side. And Sharice Wright can expect to get a lot of balls thrown his way. He was very good the first week against Buffalo. He hasn't been as good since. But you got to give Carr and Crabtree credit, particularly on that last touchdown. It was a very good throw and it was perfect throw and a really good catch to kind of get that back foot in bounds in the back of the end zone. So, yeah, the defense can't be letting them go. I'm sure Dean Pease is going to have something to say about that. I mean, they went pretty effortlessly 66 yards down the field to take the lead back in the last 4 minutes of the game or whatever, right after the Ravens had taken their first lead. So that was very disappointing, and they've got to be better. They've got to create a lot of pressure. Dumerville got in there a little bit this week in his first action, which, he should continue to get better as he gets more legs under him and gets more involved. But it was disappointing to see Carr go right down the field in the last, after what was a minute and a half or something is all he needed to score on that last touchdown drive.
He is Bo Smolka from Comcast Sportsnet. You can follow him at BSmolka out on Twitter. All right, last thing for you, man. I'm holding up my, I know I'm Facebook friends with you, Bo. I'm holding up my Oriole white-paneled bird hat here for you. This is fascinating, right? I know you love baseball. This wild card game is the strangest thing ever, right? It's Game 7, all in one night, all in one place. The Orioles came, let's be honest, one meltdown on Saturday with Wade Miley in there away from maybe having this game be here on Tuesday night. Instead, they're going to make the trip to Toronto and then hopefully down to Texas. I've got my travel plans laid out. I think they're going to win on Tuesday night. But it's a game unlike any other. It's the game you want to avoid, but when you're in it, it's as good of a baseball game as you could imagine, especially given the benches and the amount of pitchers that would be involved in it. It's an all-for-the-marbles free-for-all on Tuesday night.
No, it is. I do. I love baseball. I love, I love what Buck's done with this team. Every year, it seems, despite whatever they've done the year before, come April, the magazines all pick the Orioles to finish 4th or 5th. They can't compete in this division. They didn't make enough moves. They don't have enough pitching. They didn't fight it, whatever it is. And all they do is go out and compete every year. I was as bad. I was as angry as anyone on the Saturday night game when he kept Miley in there to start the seventh inning. It didn't make any sense to me.
Or anyone else, by the way. But it only made
I
sense to Buck. I can't find anyone else who thought, yeah, Miley, 100 pitches, let him go work the seventh with the season on the line. It was almost crazy, right? I mean,
I told people, look, at that point, if you got a 3-2, if you got Miley 6 innings, you get out of there and you are thanking your lucky stars. You can go to this great bullpen with the lead, and you got 6 innings out of Miley. And then, but having said that, yeah, the wild card game is a crazy one. It's exciting that they've made it. It's hard because one of these teams goes 162 games, goes through the grind. They'll play one game and they're out of the playoffs. They've been through this before. They went down to Texas and won that one year, so they can do it. I imagine. I haven't even seen. I'm assuming it's going to be Tillman starting. He should be on turn anyway. But you're right. They'll have everybody available.
Well, Jimenez is going to play a role in this. I mean, unless Tillman's perfect, I would expect that Jimenez will be the first guy off the bench, or vice versa. I mean, but they both have decisions to make. I mean, the Blue Jays threw all their best pitchers over the weekend.
It's true. That's true. I mean, you've got, and the funny thing is, you set your roster right, and then. But then, if you win, you can redo your roster. It could be a different 25 because it's a different series officially. So for the whatever the next series would be. So, yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it is one game for everything. It's kind of changed everything about the. I'm kind of an old school guy. I wasn't crazy about it when they went to the 2 wild card teams. But let's face it, it kept all these teams in the mix right up to the last week, and that was kind of exciting.
Well, hey, we're either golfing or watching baseball on Tuesday, and one of these two teams would be golfing Tuesday night. So, I mean, it's not, it's not crazy, but it makes it a lot more interesting. I like it. I mean, I've liked it all along, I think. But, I go back to the 90s when they, busting up the leagues was, crazy, 3 divisions and all this. And I never liked interleague play. I still don't. So, I mean, I got a lot of old guy in me on all that, but this is fun. I mean, hell, I'd rather win the division and all that, and I'd rather have the game be here. But all things being equal, I think they can go to Toronto and win on Tuesday night. No reason they can't.
No, they definitely can. They definitely can. And it'll be exciting. I mean, it's like, as you said, it's a Game 7, and there's not much more exciting in sports than a Game 7, a single elimination. All these guys know. All these guys on both teams know. The next loss is our last game, and that makes it really exciting. And it makes for the kind of the drama that makes sports what it is, and it should be a lot of fun.
Bo, are the Ravens going to make the playoffs, in your opinion?
Oh boy, to be honest, when the season began, I said no. Okay. I predicted them at the start of the season to finish 9-7, and just miss out on the playoffs. And I'm not sure I'm changing my opinion on that. Remember, they've got a brutal second half of the schedule. So I didn't go game by game. Well, they win this one, will that one, will they win this one, that one. Next week becomes very important. I think going 3-2 with first 5 would be tough. They'll have to be better. They have to be better if they're going to make the playoffs. Can they? Yeah, they can. They can win 10. They could win 11. I think they have the players to do it when they play at their best. But at the moment, I'm going to say they are not. I'll still stick with my 9-7 prediction.
Well, they lost by a point, and the sky is falling, at least for the next 6 days. We'll see if the Orioles can give it a little pep in the step. Bo, it's always great having you on, man. Always great seeing you out in Owings Mills. Love your insights on sports, and it's great having you on the program, bro.
All right, thank you, Nestor. Take care.
You got it. Bo Smolka, one of the good dudes in local media and longtime PR man at Bucknell, and, of course, covers the Ravens as the correspondent for Comcast Sportsnet. You can follow him at bsmolka, Smolka. Does a great job, great insights, and certainly you can tell he worked for some sports organizations. Got it all together. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. The morning newspaper, it's digital. It comes right to your email inbox. It's all free of charge and powered up by our friends at Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. Buffalo Wild Wings in Owings Mills. We got 2 events coming up. Monday night, it's best seat in the house as well as our wing eating competition. We do that every Monday. Tomorrow, Tuesday night, we will be there for the wild card game. It is our viewing party. Come on out to Buffalo Wild Wings at Owings Mills. We got some good friends we hang out with on Monday nights up there. We'd love to see you out on Tuesday night to watch the Orioles play the Game 7 north of the border. And there'll be no singing "Oh Canada" or any love for Geddy Lee at all at Buffalo Wild Wings and Owings Mills on Tuesday night. Last but not least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5, hopefully getting you ready for Game 1 of the ALDS in Arlington, Texas, where I'll be stationed if they indeed make it that far. Luke's going to be running around the backfields in Owings Mills all week covering all things Ravens. Just a huge week, man. Huge. I mean, we could have football games. We could have mass chaos at Camden Yards on Sunday with baseball and football and scheduling. Did I say that? I did say that. Stay tuned. But if the Orioles win on Tuesday night, you'll be hearing more about that. I promise you that. I'm Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNS-TV channel, and celebrating 25 years of Baltimore radio on December the 13th. It's true. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.